Yeah, exactly.
Like
it's just already live. We're just chatting away.
Yeah. All right. Well, and to that point, we are live. So if anybody ends up watching right now, pop in the chat and let us know that you can hear us just fine. It looks fine on my end, but I'm in kind of a different gear situation. This is episode 57. I wanted to do a live stream with friends. We're at CodeMash. It's my first time ever being at CodeMash. I love that we're getting a selfie in a. Anyways, but it's CodeMash, and everybody happened to be here. Kelvin's in from the Netherlands. Where are y'all all from? Louisiana for one. Canada, another one. So we have multinational representation here, which I think will target this topic really well. And the topic that I wanted to cover was, what is a community and does it matter? So let's start by just everybody introducing yourself. Everybody knows who all y'all are, but let's introduce ourselves. We'll start with the ladies first, and then we'll go with the ugly people, including myself. So
I'm Ashley Cooper. I built my career and all of my passion around community, just in general, wherever I've been. I moderate and I look for ways to give back almost in anything I'm a part of. So that looks like CyberDrain, MSPGeek, MSP, all that.
Yeah. And technical, not just community, but also technical aspects of that too, right? Giving back in direct technical. I even watched you perhaps do some coding and committing last night under circumstances.
I fall into being a natural community person. I more so fall into like the tech ops, like the seeking of things. And then I like to use that knowledge to like build around that. So yeah.
Because that's kind of how it was born for you, right? Tara?
Tara Rummer. I'm with MeBot. I ran an MSP that spun off MeBot, so Brett and Darren could work on the SaaS product. So I'm relatively new, I guess, to the community role that I'm in, but we've always been super active in like MSPGeek and things like that. So
who's this?
The beard.
It's Beard Banter, and so thusly for Tara.
I don't have beard, so here we are. I don't know where it came from.
That's epic. The magic appearing beard. Like, I think my nose was too big because those didn't fit around my nose. All right, boys.
I forgot who I am.
Good. Jet lag. You do it every time. Yeah.
Kelvin Tegelaar, Microsoft MVP, involved in pretty much every MSP community around. Like Slagle MSP, MSPs RS Discord, MSPGeek.
Now, if you leave it out, you're going to make people's feelings.
There's so many of them.
Fair. So serial community member.
Serial community
down. Serial community has a very different complexion. It's very different. All right.
Jason Slagle, President of CWR. We're an MSP. Community is my thing. I've been around communities my entire tech career, back from IRC back in the day to MSP these days, and some of the other ones, some of the shady little Facebook groups I lurk in, and sometimes barb and stab people. But yeah.
You are the barb and stab guy to some extent, I suppose, and maybe we'll get into that into community as the needs of a community. So the next thing I want to tackle is, like, first off, just a straight up question. We'll tackle it in pieces. What is community? Like, from each of you, what do you define as community? We'll go in the same order.
Oh, okay.
It's the names, the order I put the names in on the screen, so I'm just that OCD, sorry.
Well, for me, I think it's a lot more holistic than what we'll obviously get into, but like at the very, very core, it's what humans seek in anything they're doing. And it doesn't, like, we put a label on it and we get the capital C and call it things, but really what it is people looking for belonging and places where they're finding people who are meeting the needs of them, right? And so we see it in the MSP industry, but we see it in all different types of industries where there's a deep technical need or a deep specific need, and those people will flock together. I saw it in even like the co-working space that I went to the other day. One of the things that they brand on their page is the sense of community. Right? It's like you get to come to an office. It's not just an office, it's your office. And you know these people work at different companies, they're your colleagues and they're your community, right? And so to me, that's what community is. Of belonging. It's the innate need that we have as humans to find people who understand us and communicate the same way we do.
Yeah, I sat through a talk with George Kamide at GERCON this year, and he's an anthropologist, and he actually applied anthropology to cybersecurity and cybersecurity communities. I mean, we talked about some of the things that are broken, but very much compared it to at some point we all decided to sit around the campfire
Exactly.
and stop stabbing elephants by ourselves.
Exactly.
And we decided to stab elephants with several of us, right? Like, or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Tara, what's your
I
thoughts?
think he's
We
checking.
hearing audio?
I think he's checking the audio.
Do we have audio? Anybody else there watching? Do we have good audio? Can you hear us? Or are we just like talking? Oh, he has audio. Okay. It's like Inception in here.
Yeah.
You're listening to it again. All right, go.
He's
What do you
also
think?
distracting me.
Let's go. So it's an intentional aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it is a sense of belonging. I think it's finding connection with people with similar interests, right? Because you see it within tech, but you see
Sure.
it with people that have tattoos and stuff. Like,
Yep.
you can find it literally anywhere that you're looking for it.
Yes, I've seen a non-zero number of Zelda tattoos this
I've seen
week.
so many.
Yeah, a lot of them.
A lot of colors
So,
there too.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, hey Al, what's up? Good to see you. What's interesting is that this happens in, to your point, very different communities. They can be completely separate. They have different interests. Like there's a rave coming today or tomorrow, right? That wouldn't happen at the MSP community in the same space necessarily, I suppose, not in the larger space. Well, now. Yeah, so I watched Ashley's face right as I said that. So I may have been wrong. Oh, yes. Yeah, true story. So Slagle, what are your thoughts? What is community to you?
I mean, they echoed what I think I would largely say, right? We seek belonging, right? And I'd say that the channel has a stronger community than most of the other industries I've ended up in over the time. Like the ISP community, we had NANOG, right? Like we had the North American Network Operators Group, but it wasn't as tight knit as we have been here. We spend a third of our waking time working, essentially, other than
Sure.
weekends, right? So I think it makes sense that you seek other people that share in that misery.
Yeah, I can see where you come up with your opinions now, Jason. Just from, I mean, I'm not trying to be psychotherapist here, but fair.
Or
Wrong.
happiness.
Yeah. Well, I might have located first. All right.
Like coach this morning, and like one of the things I talked about was how happy I am that because one of the things I love to do is cross-pollinate communities,
Yep.
right? It's like we're doing it a little bit with the MSP space and the security space. Now I've drugged some MSP people to the dev space, right? Like we should always be seeking to expand community.
Yeah, which I'm going to touch on here in a second, and you triggered me into, but I don't want to cut out. Kelvin, what's your definition of community? And then we'll get to why does it matter, or does it matter?
You're baiting me now.
I know.
I'm not. No, okay, so seriously, everyone already said everything that is there to be said about community, but I don't think that people look for a sense of belonging. They find a sense of belonging.
Okay.
They don't go somewhere
Okay.
looking
That's
for being a part of something.
What are they looking
But
for? Why do they go?
In a lot of cases, and this is something that happens in MSPGeek and / our MSP, they're looking for a solution to a problem that they're having at that moment.
So it's a tactical, operational
It is.
moment of need.
Exactly. It's a moment of need, and they go somewhere and they eventually find belonging in the place they went to because they are getting the responses that they expect, or because they are able to commiserate with people about how horrible their experience has been. All that kind of stuff.
Or positive.
Or positive.
I think it might be Johnny foreshadowing, or Ashley foreshadowing in this instance. Yeah, I think you're right. So, touching off what you said there in this kind of pivot of they sometimes stumble into these out of a need, and I think that's part of the things we have to realize is that as technicians, especially in our space, but just in life, we follow the next task. We follow the next thing that either serves our mission, our job, the function we're trying to accomplish, our vision, our dream, whatever it may be, and we run into a roadblock, we reach for other humans. And what I'll summate my thought of what is community, there's an interesting thing that makes us different than dogs. A dog can have a litter of puppies, the mother can teach it how to drink clean water, where to go to the bathroom, things that are in that same function of lineage. But over 1,000 generations of dogs, it will always be that. When we think of humans, I don't have to know what the coefficient of friction is for things to make enough hold of something on itself. I don't have to understand how I'm going to fasten things. It's all been done by other humans. We have the ability to share knowledge. We have the ability to test knowledge. We have the ability to validate each other and those things. And I think that what community is the only way things get past that very linear progression methodology, right? And I'll go back to CIPP, just even a conversation in that of like the curve jumps or the leaps that you make because you have 1 + 1 = 4, right? And I think that's what community is for me. That's done well. Math. 1 + 1 = 4. Well, everybody else says 3, but I wanted to seem more, hyperbolous.
Yeah.
You
So,
just
yeah.
answered the why does it matter?
Oh, we
Does
might
it?
as well. Or does it matter? So let's go back around with that. Like, doesn't matter what order. We do have some comments. So Roddy popped in and said, it's human nature to find commonality. Sure. Unfortunately, it's human nature to find differences too. We want people to be like us and share a common goal. And I think to that end, that might be going into that what's wrong. We'll get to that. We're foreshadowing. Ashley foreshadowing yet again. And he goes on to say the problem is that when community closes itself off, it becomes self-serving. Roddy, I got your honorary chair right here, bro. 100%. Yeah, so Ashley, let's talk about, does it matter? And if you want to delve into what can go wrong, I'm okay with that being just a conversation will go around. So
Sure, call me back if I
go.
Well, like on the point about you literally just explained why it matters, because it's like we can't progress as effectively as a collective and as a group without the help from others, right? And so like if we are on our own, there's like that if you want to go fast, go alone, if you want to go
far.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Like sometimes
go with others, the right others. They don't miss that comma space, the right others after that. You can have others that sure as they'll eat you when it gets cold. I mean, I'm sorry, Don, you're part of it too.
I want you to touch on that story you told me yesterday, because I think it ties into that as well. But like, just like there can be a person that like anchors a group together,
Sure.
There can, like, that same concept, they're almost like a community builder themselves, right?
Sure.
So you can have like a brand, you can have a local like community, a neighborhood community, you can have like a product or a technical or a dev, it doesn't matter. Like you have something that is building that up and putting that together and keeping those people there, and also helping them find that belonging. And then that's where the, like, when it goes wrong, I think that it can almost all become up to those people that are building. What are their motivations? Is it like, are you trying to facilitate a platform where the solutions that people are seeking are genuinely there for them, and you're building that up along with what
the reason, the why.
Or are you trying to say, I want this group of people where I'm imposing my need and I'm imposing what I'm expecting you to want or need, and then you're like, why aren't you engaging? Why aren't you feeling belonging? And so like that recognition that it takes time, and you actually have to understand them and what they came there for. Recognize that they have to be a little bit selfish sometimes.
Sure.
And then let them bring out that, once they get that transcendence, they're going to want to start giving back.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop now. Sorry.
I mean, I wouldn't have the role I have if I didn't think community was important, right?
Sure.
So I am a huge proponent for like peer groups and things like that, because I've seen them in, say they're a PAX 8 or an Evolve or whatever. They bring these people together who have a commonality of, typically it's like the same position.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting in that room for our COO group, and the facilitator was like, clearly none of you guys need me, because we ran our own meetings. So he took a step back and was like, this is for you. So you guys just come together.
Yeah.
And we always say in our company, it's not rocket surgery. Like somebody else has already seen the issue at some point. Like, why are we reinventing
So I
the
have
wheel?
a question, just to go off on tangent. Is rocket surgery upon a rocket, surgery within a rocket, surgery using rockets?
I think surgery using
rockets. I mean, I like surgery using
So I
rockets.
bought there on the shirt because they surgeon doing surgery on a rocket.
See, I was
Wherever the
Like
like
the rocket is.
oh, it's heart centric. Okay. All right, I like that. That works. Sorry. It's not rocket surgery.
I do think it's important, right? I mean, we talked about it with IMI, we have a sales team.
Sure.
Without the community IMI built, we didn't build it. Like, no one would know.
And they have a common need to automate, to solve a problem at scale for efficiencies, right? So not selling your, use statements to buy any bot, but it's that. And we each said it. There's a need, right? Think about, like, even if you watch common TV shows, somebody gets bit, everybody turns to zombies. 5 people who would never be community people become community people, right? For a common need. And so to your point, you don't need me anymore. Or as things shift in needs, communities are organic. Jason, you want to touch on this? Are they needed? Are they always needed? The organic nature?
Yeah. So I think that you cross-pollinate, we were actually talking about this on the drive back, between the MSP and the cyber community.
Sure.
And I don't believe either of those industries exist without community.
Sure.
Right? Like, we are an industry that has loosely agreed on a collective set of what we define as our industry.
Agreed.
Right? Like, you have to do these things to be considered an MSP. You have to do these things to be a cyber guy, and all of that stuff is iterative, right? The community takes, to take it to the security side for a second, right? The community takes something like MSAL spray and then builds Trevor spray out of it, right? Like, so the community takes
bullet to now,
or the other way, Black Lantern, right?
Black
So the
Lantern.
community takes ideas, right, and they all come in, and then what comes out is better than the collective inputs, I think. So I think
that 1 + 1
community,
= 4 thing.
I'm going to go to where they can go wrong, right? Because I see this firsthand.
Okay, let's go.
And
I love it. Look how it shift posture. I don't know if you'll notice that. That was an accidental thing, but it's probably pretty built in. All right.
I think we have this tendency to accidentally become cliquey. And I know you feel strongly about this. And I don't know that that's intentional, right? But like large groups of people, they develop their own vernacular and to a certain extent their own language, right? True. So in their own inside jokes and their own cultural references and the other stuff like that. And I think it takes active effort in a growing community to make those people that don't understand negative time savings to go to the right? Or Kelvin's obsession with naming his stuff after drinks. They don't understand those inside jokes, and I think that it takes an active effort to involve those people, right? Like because people will lurk for a long time before, especially in our space. Like,
we're all introverts.
Is everyone in this?
I'm an
introvert. Are you an
introvert.
introvert? You're an extrovert.
I'm an extrovert.
Okay,
It's okay. We still love you.
But you're the glue, right? So I think the story that you wanted me to tell there. We had a friend. I had a bunch of high school friends for New Year's that came over.
Oh,
right?
cool.
Like I've known him for a long time, and we were kind of joking about being introverted. And what I think happens is extroverted people become the glue that holds communities together. Right? Because
they can give energy when you might not have some.
You get like I would come to this thing, and I feel like are the same way. I came to CodeMash for 3 years, and I don't know that I talked to anybody that I didn't know. Like, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
But then you get an extroverted person that will sidle up next to you at a table and spark a conversation. And it's like, well, now there's a person I know. So you follow them around like a sad puppy dog.
Yeah.
And then you eventually get a pack of people following that person.
And that really goes almost back to your initial point of people just want to belong.
Yeah.
Right? One of the things that I think has made me successful in life is I haven't met somebody that's not my friend. Right? Like, I mean, there certainly can become that way, but not initially, right? And so it's trying to be inclusive and involved. So what can go wrong, to your point, would be being cliquey, as the statement there.
Assuming that people don't, that they all have the same wants and needs. As you grow bigger, like when you're small and you're serving for like a diverse need, a lot of those people are-
Or semi-non-diverse need.
Like a specific need. Yeah. A lot of those people will have similar ways of thinking about things.
Sure.
As you grow, and this happens in every type of community, like you'll start to see little micro communities branch off, and sometimes those micro communities become communities of their own, right?
Sure.
They'll build off. But like one of the thing about the extroverting and the introverted is like, I've been told that I'm both. I've been told that like they're bogus and that there's actually all these other things. I've been told that like, oh, actually I'm a socially anxious extrovert, and that looks to people in real life as introversion. Mm. But online and in a digital space, I'm much more extroverted.
Yeah, sure.
And I will be the glue in a lot of these like building and mechanical ways to say, I want to make sure that people get to where they need to go, but I don't want to be the one in the spotlight.
Maybe to add this like extrovert, introvert, more of a battery. I think there are people that are introverts that still don't mind hooking the battery up to the system and giving back and being glued, right? Is that what I would say?
It's like if I'm around a group of people that make me feel like the person that I am isn't comfortable in that area, I'm going to be so drained, right? But if I'm around people who see and think and do things the same way as me, I'm energized. And so it's like with a digital space, like with MSPGeek, for example, as a digital community, there's also the online peer groups, events, etc.
Yeah, sure.
Those people might actually be really energized by being around themselves in a real life space. Sorry. Yeah. So like trying to say like, hey, if you're from like
Sandusky,
and like in the channel, and you want to come and hang out, here's our base of operations. Here's where we are. Here's where you can find us, right? And so there's going to be like at that level of, yes, we are an inside group, but we're also doors wide open. Please come in. Please join us. Let us welcome you, right? So
if we believe, go ahead, Kelvin.
I love that entire thought about inviting everyone into your space, which is what community is all about. But it's also, you have to sort of, every time we talk about community, we talk about it as this abstract concept of something that is flying right above us, and there's some people under there, but it's actually the people that make up the community in the right way. You also have to remember that in a lot of these cases, what is able to empower these people is by you being a part of that community, an active part of that community. So even if you're a lurker, but you're consuming the knowledge, you're still being an active member of that same community. And Amy does this very well in their channel. They do their complete support inside of a public community that's not owned by them. That's like it's MSPGeek, and they do their support in there. Meaning that any new user that ever joins is able to just hop into the community, immediately feel, even if, as a lurker, feel like he's getting a lot of value out of there. And that's one of the big mistakes that you see in especially pay-for-play communities, where you have to pay an entry fee.
Yeah.
It's blocked knowledge for the sake of trying to get a little bit of profit or these kind of things.
So one thing we do with Emmy actually is we tell people who don't even use Emmy to jump in there. We're like, you want to meet our community and see actual stuff? Go talk to them. Like,
well, especially as a sales engine too, and maybe when we're talking about, or at least like a enablement engine to make sure everybody understands what they're buying. What's interesting is we've each covered this from something to sell, or right now from a company perspective, and I do want to maybe dig into that a little more. But what about those communities that form kind of organically out of using something, but then much bigger? Like, think about where MSPGeek is. Started as, hey, can you help me do this thing with this really crappy, awesome tool, right? And sorry, I got a giggle from the back, so I know I'm doing good there, right? But then MSPGeek had to take this changing need, because now it's probably not mostly lab tech conversations, right? How does that change? How do you pivot and stay relevant when I'm no longer an EmmyBot community, or no longer a lab tech community, and those type of things? Like, how do you manage that pivot and that change? Like, how did you, looking back, like, how do you continue to serve the community?
I think, for the most part, that happens completely natural and organic.
And either works or doesn't?
And it either works or doesn't. People start talking about other subjects, and either you start moderating those conversations and getting...
That's my answer.
Exactly, you foster the direction. Yes.
So just like a good plant growing, you might cut off some things that aren't going to be beneficial to that plant.
Exactly.
Or you might not cut off some things that some people complain about, Rich.
Sure.
Because other people like it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a community with me, every channel eventually becomes random.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
In fact, they get quite blended. I don't think AI could figure out what channels we're for anymore.
No. Yeah. I think that it just kind of naturally happens. I think that a lot of community people make the mistake of assuming they can guide it way more than they actually have the power to do. Right, so you can create 40 channels, right? But you can't stop people from asking the question about automate in MSP general, right?
Sure.
You can't force that to happen.
But going back to belonging too is like, if there's a place where I know that I can post this silly thing, and there's people monitoring that channel that also care about that silly thing, I'm going to be more likely to post it. So figuring out where that balance is between like, hey, I've got this unique interest, like negative time savings.
You gotta get into that. A whole channel for negative, just start with minus.
There's this negative time savings channel. It effectively is a random channel, right? But it generates a lot of community engagement because people are like, I know what to post there.
Yeah. So is that what it is? Is it the having enough variety as a community grows and fostering the right ones to maintain the momentum, but also the feel? Like, because you still feel like MSPGeek, right? Like,
but there's also like, you just have to like lead by what they want.
You do have to cut toxic though.
Yes.
that's one of the ones I was trying to drag up.
Yeah,
That's the
right. Like, so everyone can have belonging there, but there are definitely behaviors that can make you no longer welcome.
Sure.
Right. And I think the community largely will self-moderate or dictate that. Like, but right. Yeah.
It's not built-in. Oh. Yeah. True story.
Yeah. But I think that, right, like, I think some communities lose sight of that. I'm going to pick on Nigel a little bit, right? Like, he absolutely steadfastly refuses to moderate heavily tech drive, and as a result, I don't participate there.
And largely that I know of.
Yeah, largely because of a couple of disruptive individuals that he doesn't want to moderate out. So I think if you don't pay attention to that and try to get a sense from your members of that there's a problem here or that maybe we need to do something, people just disengage.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's if you try to, it's mostly a thing of appeasement, you know. It's I don't. Let's take the example of there is a toxic member in the community trying to sell his tool by spreading false stories. Let's just say that that's a situation.
It might be Ben.
Let's just say hypothetically.
Let's just say that happened. And you start posting this stuff in communities, and either you get banned or
you're almost validated by not getting banned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
that's it. You're immediately validated by not getting banned. But also, if you do this in the community and 10 members see that they're allowing this to happen, that's 10 members that are no longer wanting to be a part of your community without saying anything. They just leave.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting about listening too, right?
Yeah.
Because then somebody else is going to do it and be like,
And
well,
so,
it
well,
was
he did
cool
it.
for him.
Yeah.
And to your point of like when it's about a community that grows organically, like from grassroots, like not established by a group,
or a company with interest in financial
it becomes a lot more difficult to moderate those people because they're like, I'm just an individual here. I'm not bound by anything that you. And so that's where the intentional code of conduct, ethics, all that kind of stuff comes from. But it brings up a really good point about like developer ecosystems, because that's not new. Like, we're at an event that is not run by a company and it's individual. Some people come here probably taking time off work to come. They're not sent by the
People are
company.
paying for their own tickets.
Yeah, they're probably using their Gmail accounts to sign up, right? Like, it's not. There's a lot less accountability that you can like trust and expect from people in those areas, and that's why the transparency needs to be so important there.
Sure.
Because like B2D, that whole market approach recognizes like they have it's different communicating within these spaces.
Yeah, true. And those have different needs. Again, back to the original point of why people come together. And as those needs change and are diverse, how do communities continue to add value? And one of the things that we talked about, one of the cores I want to get to, is this communities. And you said this well, and I don't know how to really rectify this, because we talk about community like it's something not tangible. But yet we're trying to talk about somebody running one and owning one when people are the deciding factors in those. So it's a very interesting conversation, just in general, to try to rectify. But when we're talking about communities that form organically without a company that's sponsoring, like a need for MSPbot, there's a great reason to have a community. Pax8, a great reason to have a Pax8 community, hopefully serving those needs. But when you form something that was out of the need of another company you don't own, and then it morphs into a lot of other things, like what continues to maintain the spirit of what that community is, and for who is the decision maker to say we're kicking out this toxic member? How does that play? Like, those are the challenges of an organic, and maybe all communities.
It's kind of like an accidental business where it's like, I keep the CEO.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now we're here.
And then the
opportunity about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of this is reason that some of the commercially spun up communities fail.
Sure.
Right, like you don't end up with some of that diversity in thought, and you don't end up like I want to engage in an area where there is good engagement, right? So we definitely have you need a certain amount of people, mass before it works. But I also want to engage with people that are interested in what I want to say. And while I think some commercial communities have that, they don't ever really hit the critical mass.
Yeah.
And they don't really have a tolerance or a place for the water cooler talk, right? Like, what percentage of messages in MSPGeek are completely off topic of anything MSP related?
75%.
I would guess, yeah.
You had a thought though.
Yeah. I kind of lost it.
Okay.
No, but you were talking about the pay for play communities, and thinking about those in long term is also they're making them for the wrong reasons in a lot of cases.
Yes.
It's the reasons.
They might even create a need.
There is a financial incentive to get a community up and running, to be able to get more sales. And I love the community-led growth, the partner-led growth model. It's fantastic.
Yep.
But it should never be the intention of the community. A lot of the larger vendors, ConnectWise has tried to make their own community. Kaseya has tried to make their own community. Enable used to have a community.
They had a Discord.
A Slack, yes. But all of them were made with one specific intention.
Yeah.
We want to control the narrative of what people are saying.
Well, now let's pivot. Let's go look at Huntress. They also have a commercial interest in having a community, but by complete converse, I would bet 75% of Huntress stuff is still completely off topic and absolutely not tied to that.
They don't have a community, do they?
They have their Discord. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, they have Discord. And it's great. It's active. It's got a bunch of stuff in it.
Yeah.
Is it because the interest of the company was created to serve that community? I mean, if you think about, obviously, finances now notwithstanding.
So the ones that work, right? The ones that end up working are the ones that started community first to begin with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that is the thing.
I'm almost wanting to back into this statement, by the way. I just want you to know.
The companies that have been champions and worked really well with the communities can spin up their own, and they are so engaged.
They're loved, they're engaged, they have need.
Yeah, and
I should have thought though. I'm gonna get to it.
Yeah, that's the case where it actually does and can work. It is a little bit of fragmenting at times.
And as your company changes, as the needs, as you go through your life cycle of a company from birth to sale, like there's a whole there. It gets tough. Yeah.
I would honestly argue that any company that has a user base, because this is what it comes down to.
VMware user groups.
If you have a user base that has problems that other users also have, and they are online people, and they see the value, because it's all about the aha moment, right?
Yeah.
They're like, okay, get me into the community. Okay, great. Okay, I'm here. Now what? As soon as they see something, like they either ask and they get an answer, or they see somebody else's answer, they see that value and they're like, oh, now I'm in. And so like with Roost, like it's not like luck or a surprise or anything. Literally on every single one of our calls, Aaron goes, be in Discord. Join these things.
So it's intentional.
It's intentional.
Yeah,
the support is also facilitated through there. So you have your support
operational. Yep.
And well, I'm in there asking my support channel questions anyways. I also see all these community questions. These people are genuinely giving back to each other. I wake up and I see people who have helped other people because they're also the ones who are in other places, right? And so it's bringing in advocates, but it has to be showing the value. You can't just be like, you're here now, start talking.
Yay, community.
Yeah. Well, so like it is going to be random stuff because that's how you get your trust first.
And it's bringing different people in so you don't create an echo chamber. I also see that in communities. Like when you're not constantly bringing in new people, it's just, we all listen to the Jasons.
They stagnate.
They do stagnate. Yeah.
So we need those little glue. We need the glue to pull people together. We need the megaphone to spread the word.
Sure.
And then we need like the connector to pull it all in. It's almost like each of those little builders have roles.
And that's why I think there's things that happen organically and grow. I mean, to your point, and maybe I'm seeing some correlations of like the more complex something is, probably, or the more nuanced something is, the more there is a need for community. Right? Like a Roost is a very highly nuanced and complex. An ME-bot, you can do so many things with it. The community has got GitHub, VMware users group back in the day, like all of those things are in that same. Yeah,
so I think some of my favorite things though that come from community are like we were talking about this last night, how there are people that use SIP, Roost, and ME together. And I'm just like, that's such a neat thing that we didn't.
That's a Venn diagram.
Like we didn't do that. They just did that. It's the coolest thing to see.
It's the moment that you're at an event and I'm standing at the ME stand, and one of the questions you get asked most is like, "Hey, when are you guys doing something together?
Yeah.
Are you creating a sippy bot?"
I love the term.
I've done it myself. Built it myself.
Yeah. As a user group. Yeah.
But that's what community is about, right? They're finding solutions to problems they're having. It's wonderful.
It's also, you have a lot of these communities that have spawned from being a community first. And
sure.
I'll take CyberDrain as an example. We were a community first with the CyberDrain and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then I made a tool because I saw that problem and everyone in the community was having that problem, and it became a CyberDrain community. So CyberDrain is a company that spawned out of that need. Which is also...
What happens when you listen to your
Pause. That's exactly what I have to say. You can create things out of the needs of others.
Exactly.
And they can create things you can elevate and put on a pedestal and grow and make capable as possible. Like, this is also the world of the maker space today. This is the world of do it yourself. This is the world of more empowerment than we've ever had to go do cool stuff. Right? Yeah, my fidget spinner. Right? Perfect example. Some jackwagon decided to program out the ability to have concentric circles print in place that some idiot like me can just spin. And that was shared in community. That's exactly it. So we're combining several concepts here. There's this aspect of humans make the community. Humans' needs drive the community. And if they are listened to, the community can do well. And holy shit, there can be commercial viability out of goodwill in communities and serving needs. Jesus, you're blowing the phone.
I made this meme where it's like the person with the megaphone stomping, and it's like users trying to get feedback, like trying to give feedback on the product they genuinely care about.
Yeah.
And then the little person like the company's trying to ignore them.
With a sailboat in their hand,
It
too.
completely
Yeah.
listened to what they were saying.
It's nuts, yeah. And that is the problem, I think, that communities solve. This is what I was hoping to get to, maybe inadvertently, but is that communities, if you are just to listen to the loudest person, and I say this all the time when I'm giving advice, I'm loud and articulate, doesn't make me right, right? And if you are to listen to the loudest person and have a very small sample size as a company, you can build Homer Simpson's car, right? But if you were to think about this in a way of you have this community that now self-polices, serves needs, you oust the people that aren't doing things beneficial, and then you ask them what they need, you are now actually asking a sampling of people that have the needs, that use your products, that have needs themselves, and now you're solving those needs. And it gives you a better base for user voice, like in my opinion, I think, being able to be involved. But it takes being involved in those communities. Like, how much time do you spend in communities just reading stuff and trying to decide what to do?
Yeah. And that's honestly the overwhelm that most people feel when they think, like, I just can't invest time or energy, is because it's like this way too disparate. I don't know how to find what I'm looking for. That's honestly like going to be if I do ever do anything with my life's work will be to come up with a way to make that easier.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine LLMs go a long way in the near future for some of these things. But yeah, I agree.
Good use for AI?
Wait, we actually have one that's non-deterministic positive view. Should write this down. Let's do this right now. Patent pending. Go. What were you wanting to mention?
Oh, she just reminded me. I said to her earlier, I think you were talking about lurkers. I was like, remind me to talk about Rosie. There's this girl woman, her name is Rosie. I forget her last name, but her blog is Rosieland. She's been doing I think that they call it functional centric community, whatever. It's grassroots community stuff. Like, she's got blogs upon blogs of all these things, and she has one about redefining the lurker. And I think it's so
which is what you started with, which is that they actually are positive and
it's like, just because they're not speaking doesn't mean that they aren't receiving value, doesn't mean that they aren't
telling other people about it. Yeah.
Like my own journey where I was talking about I was feeding on it, I was receiving the information, and then I wasn't really benefiting from it anymore, but I was telling everybody else I talked to go to it, and then I started to give back and actually moderate.
Yeah, I've heard you tell them on stage, actually.
Yeah, so that's kind of that concept I would recommend, because from the developer community centric perspective, there's a lot of work that's been done around that. She's a fantastic person to follow up. So. Very
cool. We got to get some comments in real quick because we've got a few in here. I think they're important comments. That's going to be a Bob Miller comment. I think he said, Bob Miller did say, I feel like MSPGeek gets it right, so you got to vote there, which is awesome. Dean said, I like the Dustin Bolander guy always trying to sell a bottle of wine at 2 a.m. It's so toxic. So do we just want to take our vote and bust it and vote out Dustin now?
I got
evidence has been presented. Ah, man, it's unfortunate. All right, Dean's out. Okay, unfortunate. No, I tease. Bob said the motivation for a group to get together has to be more than a widget. It has to be about being like-minded people with different, and I'll get into like-minded. I don't know that that's necessarily universally true. I will say after the same things, but approaching it differently. Because you and I and you and I and you and I all think very differently about things, but come to the same outcomes. Said that it's about having different perspectives, so now he takes that point, which is accurate. I withdraw all my former statement. I should have kept reading, Bob. Some of the people I work with regularly now come directly from several of our communities. They're all, I didn't even talk about that cross-pollination exposure for opportunity, for jobs, and for growth. And
we are only in this room because of community.
100%.
We never would have crossed paths.
All of you, in some way.
Yeah.
100% accurate. He said there will be need for a more core group to drive the dynamics. So Bob was saying that we actually, at some point, you have to form some core group that is kind of like the Queen Mother, right? We're protecting. I cannot do that. Yeah. Exactly, the future of it. IR Game came from a need of others in our community and built the foundations on another project. And he's right, they're building a fairly flourishing community of people chatting about it in their Discord channel. And sometimes maybe they get formed to solve a tactical need during the moment. Like, we need to be able to chat. Let's start a Discord just to chat about this problem, right? Like, that's probably how one of y'all wound up with MSPGeek, probably, or whoever it is.
Actually, the UK group spun off because there's a cultural need,
Sure.
right? Same type of thing.
Yeah, sure. I don't think we have too much more to beat this to death. We're towards the end of it. Anybody have any final thoughts on, and maybe I'll pose a question. Should every company that has a complex product start and foster a community?
Absolutely not.
Okay, why?
They should be involved in the communities that exist at the moment, and should meet their people where they're at.
Do you mean you can't always control the community?
Yeah, you can't always control the
community.
That is so weird, right?
Hold on, man.
That's so weird, right?
All right.
No, but it's one of those things that I'm super passionate about. It's Slagle and I were talking about this a couple of weeks back. Microsoft was giving this presentation. They said the MSP space is less than 2% of our market.
Wow.
You have to realize that.
Wow.
That internationally, let's say at Microsoft, or be it at Amazon, or whatever, we are
push back on that number and how much is controlled from the GDP. No. You still think?
No, because
of their numbers, not their size of people.
Revenue.
Yeah. Okay, exactly. I withdraw.
Exactly.
Fair.
So you have to remember how small we actually are on the grand scale of things.
Sure.
And MSP communities, everyone that speaks in one speaks to pretty much everyone that is active in one of the other communities as well.
Back to your point of the cross-pollination.
There's a lot of cross-pollination. So no, as a vendor, do not start your own community. Start getting involved actively in the ones that exist.
Well, the problem is you create, by its very nature, an echo chamber. You start with
you
one.
Don't
you don't even
want
become
one.
I think that you should consider it more from the perspective of after your research, after you've looked into what your customers are, who the audience is, because you might find that your customers, for whatever reason, aren't the ones
they're not being served
that are actively out in the communities, or you just don't have the capacity and you have an ability internally to centralize a lot of that stuff, then yes, absolutely do it. But if you recognize that actually a large portion of your audience isn't even in online communities, but they do go to peer groups or they do webinars or whatever, then focus on those things more.
Sure.
Right? There's different go-to-market strategies. They don't have to go against each other. You don't have to be product-led growth or community-led. You can fit both in where they both matter.
And maybe you don't have to necessarily define that you're creating a community. It's almost that they happen organically. And it goes right back to meet your customers where they are and meet your customers with the knowledge and things that add value.
If you have value to give out, if you have trainings, if you have content that you want to centralize in one place and let people communicate about it, you've built a community and it adds value. Really.
Sure.
Just me? No, I mean, you're both right. I mean, we started with MSPGeek before we even had a product. So we were in the community, we were learning what people wanted.
But how about now where you do have a natural community forming of your own? Did that happen by accident? Was it on purpose? A combination?
I would say it's not on purpose. We don't do a lot on purpose, guys. We do a lot of things accidentally.
This whole conversation.
You're letting the community.
Well, they guide us. Yeah. So it's a huge part of what we do, right? Because we are so small and we don't know everything. There's so many people using our product probably better than we are. And so I'm like, no, you guys guide where the hell we're going with all of these things.
All right, man.
So to your commercial point, if you build a community whose only purpose is for me to be able to ask questions about your product, you've created a support forum, not a community. I will only be involved in that when I have a direct need, and it will never spark the conversations that create a community. Right. Additionally, right now you've lost all the cross-pollination. I would venture to guess they're a prime example of this. but I would venture to guess that there are products that came to prominence because of their involvement in the community.
Direct involvement, not necessarily trying to control it,
100%
being
direct
involved.
involvement.
Yeah.
I'll cite Finn,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a very red ocean they're swimming in.
Oh,
And
very much.
the community very much how engaged they were and how community driven they were caused a bunch of people like
Grab
me
market
and other people
Yeah.
to tell all their friends that it's awesome.
Well,
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, and Finn goes about, I love Finn, but that's beside the point. They go about it in a way where
Same here.
they're talking to people
We're
as
both
humans. They're not
Yeah.
always, you'll see sometimes they're a little silly, and that's okay. They're not always talking about their products.
Many times.
Yes,
It's amazing.
And
I
it's
did wear
wonderful.
life jackets the first time.
If it would be
Right.
an advantage for you, like if it's something that you bring to the table that your competitors don't, then that's something that's always going to
Yeah.
reward.
And don't forget fun.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about this, but I think the thing we described there, even Pack States are the community. They dressed up in stupid flight suits. They really,
Yeah.
It's that you laugh at those people a little bit. Even like Degenerates and their formation was they're doing this stupid fun dress up like this
It's
thing.
the time.
But you think about it, it also invites other people to come in and talk to you when you
Yeah.
look outlandish because you
Totally.
look like the dumbest person in the room.
Totally. Yeah.
And you're like, what?
You're building trust through authenticity.
Yeah. And a little humility some, maybe.
And that
Yeah.
builds
Yeah. Bob Miller said, earn the right to form a community by being part of the others that exist first.
Yes.
I agree. And I think there's more nuance of the sense that we've covered today of like, sometimes it has to have a need first. You can't just make it. If it's already being served somewhere else, you're just trying to take market share. You're
Yeah.
trying to take control of the narrative.
You build a new target,
Yeah.
you don't create a new target shop.
Right.
Target shoppers for another
That's
target.
correct. That's correct. Exactly. Yeah, 100%. You might have a small market share you grow there, but the intention. But
You might draw from another competitor nearby, but you're not.
Yeah.
More people don't appear because the grocery store appeared.
all right, Mickey Pruitt said, love seeing this conversation unfold here. Community thrives when it's built on shared purpose. Agreed. The best ones stay open, inclusive, and always evolving. I totally agree that your people are going to evolve. This goes all the way back to just finding a way to get a good pulse of the constituents you serve, deciding whether that should shift or pivot, and then it's going to kind of happen. It's going to kind of happen. It's kind of part of this too, right? So there's this interesting golden rule that applies there. The ones that I see that do well in communities, even though they shift, give more than they take.
Yep.
100%.
That's it. They exist to make everyone better as a 1 + 1 is 4. If the math works out that 1 + 1 = -2, I'm not going to continue doing it. Right? It doesn't benefit. And then people leave and it stagnates. You see it for what it is. So, but I also think maybe all communities end. And so to that point, this must end because I'm over time. Love y'all. Thank you for being on the show. Hope everybody got some value out of this. And thank you for being here.